You are listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZW LP Conroe and 106.1 KZCC LP Conroe and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Legal Connection Show. I'm Tony Collins, and I'm a licensed attorney in the state of Texas, and we are here today to go over some legal issues in the community that may be of interest to you. And my co-host Cheryl has been out for the last couple of weeks. You may have noticed she had a death in her family. Her oldest son passed away, and so I want you to all pray for her. And as we have, and there's just no words to explain how sad we are for the situation. But she's mourning right now, and when she feels a little bit better, she'll be back to join us. It's always fun to have her here to bounce our questions off of her, and the recent current events and stuff that happens in court that we think y'all need to know about. You can hear us on 106.5 and 104.5 and 106.1 on the local FM radio stations, and we air on Tuesdays between noon and 1. We also have our own Facebook page, which is illegalconnectionshow.com. If you miss anything or didn't hear us live, you can also Google the Legal Connection Show and listen to our broadcast on YouTube. Also, you can go to Lone Star Radio, their site, and I believe it's lsradio.com. And is that right, Station Manager Dick? I'm sorry. It's been so long since I've done the calls. irlonestar.com, and then you can look up our show, and it gives you all of our past shows, and the header shows what topics we've covered. Today we're covering gun control and frequently asked questions about that. We've had a number of shows about that, but we're going to go over it again today because we've had some recent changes in the law. I'm going to read a press release from Governor Abbott that was released last week, June 17th, I believe that was last Thursday, about the loosening of our gun control laws in Texas that will become effective September 1st, 2021. And it is overwhelming how different this law is from what it was previously. So we're going to go over some frequently asked questions about what the law was previously, because that's what's still in effect. And I have many, many clients that have had their guns confiscated by the different law enforcement agencies when they're stopped. And we're going to talk about how that affects you to see if there is a ex post facto laws, how that kicks in and how that affects you now. But first, let me read to you the Second Amendment legislation law that was put into place in Texas and some of the commentary. And basically, I'm going to read you the press release from Governor Abbott that he issued last week. Governor Greg Abbott today, which was June 17, 2021, signed 7 pieces of legislation into law to protect Second Amendment rights in Texas. The governor was joined for the bill signing ceremony by Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, Speaker Dade Phelan, Senators Donna Campbell, Brandon Creighton from our district, and we're trying to get him on the show. We love all of the laws that that Senator Creighton has put into legislation, and so I'd love to have him to talk about this law that was recently passed. I'm sure he was spearheaded it, and I'm completely supportive of it, or at least supportive of the type of laws that Senator Creighton pushes forward. Senator Charles Schwertner and Drew Springer, Representative Giovanni Capriglione, I probably slaughtered that, Cole Hefner, Tom Oliverson, Matt Schaefer, David Spiller, and other members of the legislature, as well as representatives of the National Rifle Association. Politicians from the federal level to the local level have threatened to take guns from law-abiding citizens, but we will not let that happen in Texas, said Governor Abbott. Texas will always be the leader in defending the Second Amendment, which is why we built a barrier around gun rights this session. These 7 laws will protect the rights of law-abiding citizens and ensure that Texas remains a bastion of freedom. Thank you to the Texas legislature for getting these bills to my desk. And here are the 7 bills. Senate Bill 19 by Senator Schwertner and Capriglione. It prohibits any government entity from contracting with any business that discriminates against firearm and ammunition businesses or organizations. 2. Senate Bill 20. It was brought by Campbell and Hefner. Allows guests to store firearms in their hotel rooms. Now, remember, this is effective September 1st, 2021. 3. Senate Bill 550. It was brought by Springer and Spiller. Removes the shoulder or belt holster requirements, allowing Texans to carry firearms in whatever kind of holster they choose. Number 4. House Bill 957 was brought by Oliverson and Springer. Repeals the criminal offense of possessing, manufacturing, transporting, or repairing a firearm silencer. It also ensures that any firearm suppressor manufactured in Texas and that remains in Texas will not be subject to federal law or federal regulation. So while in Texas, this all applies. The federal law will not prohibit you from these new laws passed by the Texas legislature and signed by Governor Abbott. Number 5, House Bill 1500, brought by Hefner and Creighton, prevents any government entity from prohibiting the sale or transportation of firearms or ammunition during a declared disaster or emergency. My understanding was that was already in place before September 1st, 2021. But I'm going to repeat that because it's important, because we recently had a freeze disaster that was declared. And we may have more disasters declared during this hurricane season. So I'm going to repeat that. House Bill 1500 prevents any government entity from prohibiting the sale or transportation of firearms or ammunition during a declared disaster or emergency. Number 6, House Bill 1927 by Schaefer and Schwertner authorizes the constitutional carry in Texas, meaning law-abiding Texans can legally carry a handgun without a license to carry. And number 7, House Bill 2622, brought by Howland and Hall, makes Texas a Second Amendment sanctuary state by protecting Texans from new federal gun control regulations. And that was the end of his Governor Abbott's press release that he released last week relative to the new gun laws, which are extremely favorable to people that favor the absence of gun control. The NRA, in other words, is very happy with these, and so are apparently most Texans. I wanted to read another article to you that sort of gives the flip side to that I was reading, and they say it best in the article, so I'm just going to talk about that. It's the Dallas News article. It's titled "Governor Greg Abbott Embraces Constitutional Carry in Boost for Divisive Gun Legislation." And rather than just carry on like I normally do about the gun laws, I'm just going to read this article, which kind of gives you the pros and cons of both. The Republican governor said that if the legislature passes a bill to let people carry handguns without first getting a license, he will sign it, which he did on June 17th. After skirting the question for weeks, Governor Abbott is now saying he would sign a bill letting people carry handguns in public without a license if the lawmakers pass it, which this article was written April 28, 2021. So it really doesn't give us the guts of the law, but because he signed everything that was put on his desk, it is applicable. Governor Abbott goes on to say 2 months ago, I believe it should reach my desk and we should have constitutional carry in Texas. Governor Abbott, a Republican, said during a radio interview on Tuesday in April, this is something that 20 other states already have adopted, and it's time for Texas to adopt it. His endorsement gives a major boost to the divisive legislation, which is gaining traction in the Texas legislature after years of going nowhere. It also puts even more pressure on Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick to advance the National Rifle Association-backed bill, which has already cleared the House. So the Senate had passed it, and then Governor Abbott signed it last week. The bill will receive a public hearing Thursday in a newly formed Senate committee stacked with Republicans. And rather than go on reading these old articles, I thought I was reading a new one. Just know that they did have a press conference. They did have a public hearing on it, and it did pass. The article that I was reading earlier that it just came out last week was one that was written 5 days ago, and it's from the it's the print is so tiny. It's the NRA-ILA, Institute of Legislative Action. This article came out when Governor Abbott signed the bill last week. And it's titled, Texas Governor Greg Abbott Signs NRA-Backed Constitutional Bill into Law. And this, I'm going to read the article to you. All of your hard work and persistence has paid off. Today, Governor Greg Abbott signed House Bill 1927, NRA-backed constitutional carry legislation authored by Republican Matt Schaefer from Tyler into law. He's a representative from Tyler. The historic bill signing fittingly took place, and I need to get this a little bit closer because my eyes are going bad at my age, at the Shrine of Texas Liberty, the Alamo in San Antonio. Thanks to all of your emails and call to state lawmakers, Texas becomes the 21st permitless carry state in the nation, and rights have been restored to law-abiding Texans who wish to protect themselves and their families outside their home. The NRA issued this press release upon Governor's final approval of this landmark legislation, which the Governor signed into law on June 17, 2021, to become effective September 1st, 2021. Now, the House Bill 1927 was only one of the 7 laws signed into law in Texas, but this article talks about just House Bill 1927. House Bill 1927 does not affect previously issued licenses to carry and allows those who still wish to obtain a license in order to carry in states recognizing Texas permits to do so. It does not allow anyone prohibited under state or federal law from possessing a firearm to carry a firearm. The new law will take effect September 1st, 2021. For more details and frequently asked questions on House Bill 1927, please click here, which I'm going to click because this is a frequently asked questions gun law show today. And it's pulling up because I had anticipated doing a show on gun frequently asked questions last week, but this law was signed into effect after I had done my research. Okay, so what does House Bill 1927 do? It allows law-abiding individuals aged 21 and over to carry a handgun openly or in a holster or concealed in non-prohibited places for the protection of themselves and their families without having to first obtain a license to carry. Prohibitions on criminals' possession firearms remain in place. For an example, felons, fugitives from justice, individuals committed by courts for mental illness, illegal aliens, domestic abusers, and certain others listed in the bill, increases the penalty for felons in the possession of a firearm by this bill. Misuse of a handgun in a public place remains a criminal act. The next question is, who cannot carry a handgun in a public place under House Bill 1927? Persons prohibited from possessing a firearm under Federal Code 18 USC 922G. Texas Penal Code 46.04 also has those prohibited from carrying a firearm, which will still be in place under House Bill 1927. 2. Persons convicted within the past 5 years of a misdemeanor of bodily assault, causing injury, deadly conduct, or terroristic threat, or disorderly conduct, display or discharge of a firearm, are also prohibited. That's under Texas Penal Code 22.01, 22.05, 22.07, or 42.01, 7 or HA. House Bill 1927 applies equally to Texas residents and out-of-state individuals. So in other words, people from a different state that must comply with Texas gun laws are now, as long as they're following Texas law, they won't be breaking the law in Texas if they follow House Bill 1927, which was just signed into law. How can a lawful person carry a handgun under House Bill 1927? So now this, starting effective September 1st, 2021, this is just a normal law-abiding citizen that has a gun. House Bill 1927 allows both opened and concealed carry without a license. If any part of a handgun is visible, it must be in a holster. So that's the caveat. If you are carrying openly without a license, you have to have a holster. House Bill 1927 repeals the requirement that the holster be a belt or a shoulder holster. So apparently the holster can be a cute pink, Hello Kitty purse, as long as it's a holster. I'm going to say not necessarily a shoulder holster, but this isn't prohibiting something that you bought that you just want to carry via a purse, as long as the handgun is visible, and that's considered a holster. So look up the definition of holster, and you can modify that to anything that would fit that criteria now. Now, the next question is, what places are prohibited under House Bill 1927? If you're on someone else's property, their rules, private businesses can prohibit unlicensed carry by giving notice under Penal Code 30.05. That's Texas Penal Code 30.05. Or a traditional gun buster sign. See below. So if you go to the website for the NRA, that will give you an example of that sign. And actually, I'm going to go and see. It says see below. I don't see what the sign says. I don't see an example. When I find the sign, I will show it to you. I'm sorry. I'm trying to find the see below. Okay. The penalty is a Class C misdemeanor and a maximum of $200 fine if the individual leaves immediately when told. So you can still get a Class C if law enforcement is present and there's a sign up that says that you may not carry this, or that you knew in advance the owner told you to leave. But basically there's a sign saying you can't come in, and you do, and you just didn't see the sign. You are still going to be criminally liable under a Class C misdemeanor and they can call a constable or a sheriff or a police officer to that place of business or private property, and they will issue you a ticket and ask you to leave immediately, and you'll have to pay that fine. House Bill 1927 maintains currently prohibited places for persons without a license to carry. So there's certain places that you can't bring a gun, that are prohibited places that you still cannot bring a gun in. So really, this law is only changing the fact that you don't need to get a license to carry and actually go through all of the hoops that you have to, but the same laws will apply. You can't just walk into a prohibited place or some place that privately prohibits you with a gun. Prohibited places include schools, including college premises, polling places, courts or offices, courts or office facilities, civil commitment facilities, hospitals, nursing homes, mental hospitals, amusement parks, and government open meetings. House Bill 1927 prohibits the unlicensed carrying in a public place while intoxicated. Carry on federal property is still restricted by federal law. Note that it is a federal felony offense to carry onto a post office property or military installation a firearm. What signs can prohibit carry of a handgun? Any prohibited place listed in the Penal Code 46.03 may post a newly defined sign to give clear notice that the location is prohibited. However, the sign is not required to make the place off limits. A church or private business may prohibit unlicensed carry of a handgun under Texas Penal Code 30.05. It doesn't say shall, it says may. Notice can be a specific sign similar to Penal Code 30.06 signs or any other sign, quote, reasonably likely to come to the attention of an intruder, or any other written or verbal notice that warns individuals they are prohibited to enter the property with a firearm. A church or a business may allow only concealed carry while prohibiting open carry. I'm going to repeat that because it's kind of important. A church or a business may allow only concealed carry while prohibiting open carry, which makes perfect sense. You don't want to scare your patrons in a restaurant or a business or a church. So I guess you can have concealed carry, but if they prohibit you entirely, then you can't bring it in. House Bill 1927 repeals the Texas alcohol and tobacco signs. That's the TABC signs prohibiting unlicensed carry in locations that sell alcohol not for consumption on premises, such as a grocery store or a gas station. I'm going to repeat that. The House Bill 1927 repeals the sign law prohibiting unlicensed carry in locations that sell alcohol not for consumption on the premises. So in other words, you can carry now in a grocery store or a gas station. Notice under Texas Penal Code 30.06 or 30.07 will continue to restrict the handgun license to carry holders from carrying, but notice under 30.05 does not restrict persons with a license to carry. So license to carry is still important to have in certain instances, so you'll need to look at that law if we don't cover it in time in today's show. If a property owner or someone with apparent authority provides notice that carrying a firearm in the location is prohibited, the person, licensed or unlicensed, must immediately depart or face a heightened penalty. So if you go to somebody's residence or a church or a business and they tell you to leave immediately with your handgun, you must immediately, or you'll have more than just a criminal, a Class AC misdemeanor, which is one that just gives you a ticket. You can be arrested, taken to jail, and charged with a higher offense, Class B or above. Okay, what else does House Bill 1927 do? It allows for the expunction of criminal records for unlawful carrying of a handgun in a non-prohibited place under Penal Code 46.02 before September 1st, 2021. That's really important for my clients, and I'm going to repeat that. This bill allows for the expunction of the criminal records of unlawful carrying of a handgun in a non-prohibited place that where there was a charge under Penal Code 46.02. I have several of those cases that are currently in place right now where we're trying to have the state dismiss or my client exonerated or acquitted of carrying a handgun where it was prohibited. Now, even if they are convicted, it can be expunged, and so that's good to know for myself as an attorney and for my clients. The DPS will create a free, voluntary, online firearm safety and handling class. So that's really important to know with people that have guns that previously had a license to carry and now want to open carry. To please go to the DPS is free voluntary online firearm safety and handling class, because anything that I don't cover today is going to be more thoroughly covered by the DPS online class. So you'll know when you are breaking the law and not breaking the law under the Texas new sanctuary state Texas legislation. Sanctuary state Second Amendment legislation that but does override the federal legislation, and now promotes your Second Amendment rights under the Constitution that were increasingly being taken away by our different liberal legislatures and executive and presidential parties that are in place right now. Okay, so what else does House Bill 1927 do? It increases penalties for unlawful possession of firearm by felons, individuals convicted of a Class A misdemeanor family violence, and individuals subject to protective orders who have received notice. So now your penalties are even higher if you have a firearm under these circumstances, which is completely proper and appropriate. If you shouldn't have a firearm because you're already in trouble for family violence with a firearm, if you're a felon or there's a protective order and now you have one, you're going to be even more penalized by the government than before. So know that. You can't just carry a firearm if you weren't supposed to before. It also protects the right of foster parents who can legally possess firearms to carry handguns while transporting foster children in a vehicle. Prior to that, they could not. That's really, really important, particularly in cases where you have foster parents who are keeping children because their parents were convicted, weren't taking care of them, abandoned them, and now suddenly want to get them back. The foster parents can now protect themselves and their children by having a firearm in their vehicle. So know that, parents that abandon your kids and no longer have custody, who believe that they can go and get their children back. Now remember, foster parents are not the biological parents, they're not the legal parents, they're foster parents. But now those people can now carry firearms to protect their wards of this state. Now, can I or should I still get a license to carry in Texas? House Bill 1927 does not repeal the existing license to carry law. Texans who are eligible for a license to carry can still obtain a license to carry. There are continued benefits to having a license to carry. The continued benefits are these. And so I would still get one if you have a gun, just to protect yourself for these reasons. Reciprocity when carrying other states that recognize Texas license to carry law, but don't recognize the new legislation that will be effective September 1st, 2021. 2, firearm purchasers. Those with a license to carry receive a federal exemption from a background check when purchasing a firearm from a dealer. 3, college campus carry will allow you to have this under the license to carry law. So if you are a student or a teacher or visiting a campus, you will still need a license to carry. 4, carry on Lower Colorado River, the Lower Colorado River Authority property. That would be you tubers out there on the Brazos and in Austin and the various other areas covered by the Lower Colorado River Authority. Get your license to carry. If you want to take your firearm, it would probably not be a bad idea because there's still activity out there, and you may not know that you are breaking the law if you go there without that. 5, carry in open meetings of government entities. Now, I'm surprised that you needed a license to carry for your concealed handgun on for government meetings, but I suppose this would be a government meeting that's not held on a government premises, which would not apply. So, if you want to carry in open meetings of governmental entities, then you will still need to have your license to carry if you want to have it concealed and have it with you, which would not be a bad idea because we've all seen the videos where people are pulling guns or need guns during these highly volatile government meetings where people are not in agreement on what's being discussed. Now, how does House Bill 1927 affect a firearm purchase? House Bill 1927 does not in any way change who can purchase or possess a firearm or how an individual can purchase a firearm. All firearm purchases at retail stores or through gun dealers will still require a background check unless the purchaser is in possession of a valid license to carry. Another reason to have your license to carry, so it makes the ease of your purchase a little easier. What happens in states that pass constitutional carry? A 2017 study of the states that had enacted constitutional carry, and now Texas is the 21st that has enacted it, effective September 1st, 2021. Of those states, at least 5 years prior, found that violent crime rates decreased with constitutional carry. And that's probably, and there's probably a lot of stuff written about it, it's probably because the criminals know that you don't have to conceal a gun and that you have a gun. And it's a lot easier to access when you don't have to conceal it. And so it's going to prohibit more criminal activity, knowing that it's not a one-sided show where the criminal comes in with their guns drawn or can draw them on you and you didn't know that. Now they will see that you have a gun and that you can protect yourselves, and their viability is now in danger more. So I'm going to read that again because I think that's kind of important. A 2017 study of the states that had enacted constitutional carry, the way they phrase it is really weird. A 2013 study of the states that enacted constitutional carry at least 5 years prior found that violent crimes had decreased. And another caveat to that is Arizona, it's not a caveat, but it's just another thing I'm going to add. Arizona enacted constitutional carry in 2011. That year, 3.6% of the population had a carry permit. In February of 2021, 5.3% of that population still had a carry permit. I don't know why they added that, but apparently the people that had a license to carry still and believed that it was important to have a handgun still had their license to carry. So law-abiding citizens apparently still want to get a permit for it because of the perks and because there's no question that they have a gun and that they're not doing anything illegally. The last in this frequently asked question section of, I believe it was one of the representatives, state legislature that were promoting this bill before it was passed. Can a law enforcement officer detain someone simply for carrying a handgun? And the answer is, it is unclear. It depends on how the courts will interpret, quote, a peace officer who is acting in the lawful discharge of the officer's official duties may, and this is the law, so I'm going to read it again. A peace officer who is acting in the lawful discharge of the officer's official duties may disarm a person at any time the officer feels reasonably that it is necessary for the protection of the person, officer, or another individual. So that is a gray area of whether law enforcement can detain somebody who is simply carrying a handgun. And I will tell you, as an attorney, they will probably detain you because even the people that I've represented that have a license to carry and have informed law enforcement that they have one are still detained. They are disarmed and their gun is taken into the law enforcement custody, and they usually have to get a motion to get it back, a legal motion in court for law enforcement to release that gun back to them. So I would say that a law enforcement can probably disarm you of it, because if they even feel threatened by you, that would be a reason enough. Which I would say that, at least in my experience with law enforcement, when I've been there, they've been very fair in their actions with regard to how they interact with my clients. Of course, I'm there and they know I'm an attorney, or generally they do, and so they're on their better behavior. Then when they're in a bar late at night and there's alcohol involved and people are throwing punches, and there's just, you may be disarmed if you're just the girlfriend sitting there with the gun in your purse and you let them know. All right, so to go on with this article that the NRA has set out about Governor Abbott's new law, Governor Abbott sent out this news release, the one that I believe I've already read to you, after he signed the monumental bill into law. Please thank Governor Abbott for demonstrating his strong commitment to and support for your Second Amendment rights in the Lone Star State. So that's the NRA asking you to click over on their website to give a shout out to Governor Abbott for supporting looser gun control laws. The unprecedented success that Texas gun owners achieved this legislative session culminated in Governor Abbott not only putting his signature on House Bill 1927, but also supporting the following NRA-supported bills, which we've already discussed. But I guess to recap, House Bill 1500 prohibits government officials from shutting down firearm-related businesses during a future disaster. Senate Bill 19 restricts companies which discriminate against firearm industries from obtaining contracts from the state. So they can't discriminate against you now if you promote firearms and they don't like it. You can still get contracts from the state for your small business and what have you. Senate Bill 20 allows hotel guests to transport and store firearms in their rooms while traveling. To be honest with you, I never knew that was prohibited, but you can now openly have a firearm in your hotel room, and it cannot be prohibited. If the maid comes in to clean and your gun is on the desk, you can't get in trouble for that. I would probably still hide my handgun if the kids are coming and going. It would not be prudent to have children under the age of 21 or much younger coming in and out of your hotel room with access to a gun. You're just asking for the CPS to yank your kids away from you if there's any kind of custody battle, or you're having some kind of civil litigation against them, or even any marital strife. Hide that handgun. It's just not prudent to keep a loaded gun on a desk. You putting yourself in harm's way if you enter your hotel room and somebody else is there pointing your own gun at you. Maybe, and that comes to mind, a spouse that is unhappy with you, that has a very high insurance policy, enters the hotel room prior to you getting back from your afternoon swim with the kids. The kids are still eating. She wants to show that it's a suicide. What if you sit down to take a nap? She puts her gloves on so there's no fingerprints, and puts your hands on it instead, and it looks like you've shot yourself. That is going to be a suicide that she gets away with, and she will now get that $20 million life insurance policy. That is not me speaking about my beloved Jim. I would never do that. He is worth far more alive to me because he is such a fun, giving, and loving person. And I just want to thank the Lord right now for bringing him into my life. Life has been wonderful for the past 15 or 16 years with you. And the last one that is referenced again in this article is Senate Bill 550, removing the requirement that a holster for an openly carried handgun be a belt or shoulder holster. And I'll just, reiterate that you don't have to have a belt or a shoulder holster, but you do have to have some kind of holster. So I'm thinking it's going to be like a purse, or, maybe some other designer holster, but it doesn't have to be a shoulder or a belt one anymore. Special thanks go out to House Bill 1927 bill author, Representative Matt Schaefer, who spearheaded the effort on constitutional carry and worked tirelessly to pass the measure this session, and to bill sponsor Charles Schwertner for navigating this critically important legislation through the Senate. And I'll just say that it really helps if you hire a lobbyist, if you really want to get some kind of legislation passed, because that's what they had to do. The NRA is very well funded. Of course, they could afford it. But if you're trying to get a bill passed for some other reason, a lobbyist is going to make that so much smoother for you to get it through the House and Senate and to Governor Abbott. If there's something else that doesn't get the type of publicity that the gun control laws do. House Speaker Dade Phelan and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick prioritized these key measures in their leadership on the Second Amendment issues, made this a groundbreaking session for law-abiding Texas gun holders. All right. So there was a couple of articles out there that were really negative about this legislation, and I think that I should just give them a fair amount of airtime for that. Here's one of them that says, Texas, it's through WWKVUE, which is I'm getting phone calls, so I'm hanging up on that person. This is from KVUE, and it is Governor Abbott signs gun bills. Texas Abbott expands gun rights less than a week after the Austin mass shooting. So I just can't stop this person from calling me, and so I will keep on getting rid of them. Okay. Governor Greg Abbott said he spoke to the family of 25-year-old Gub Cantor, the man killed in the mass shooting on 6th Street last weekend. And this article was written June 18, 2021. San Antonio. So KVUE is in San Antonio, the place where Governor Abbott signed these bills into law at the Alamo. Texas Governor, and so this is how this article reads. Texas Governor Abbott, on Thursday, signed 7 bills into law that will expand gun rights in the state. The signing took place less than a week after a mass shooting in Austin that killed 1 person and injured 14 others. Quote, Texas will always be the leader in defending the Second Amendment, which is why we built a barrier around gun rights this session. These 7 laws will protect gun rights of law-abiding citizens, ensure that Texas remains a bastion of freedom, end quote. Abbott said during Thursday's signing ceremony at the Alamo in San Antonio, Texas. Abbott was asked about expanding gun rights following the Texas mass shooting that killed the 25-year-old Doug Cantor, a tourist who has recently earned his master's degree and bought a home in Michigan. Governor Abbott said, I had the opportunity to visit with the family members of the person who lost his life. It's a tragedy. This family is heartbroken about what happened, but the family members were adamant about 2 things. 1, do not let this crime committed by teenagers be a reason to eliminate gun rights in the United States of America. And that's from the family where the guy was passed away. So they also are proponents for the gun laws that were just passed by the state of Texas. Abbott said the family also told him that they were against policies that defund the police in cities like what happened in Austin. Those, and I quote, those who believe and support Second Amendment rights, we support the right of every law-abiding American to have a weapon and defend themselves, Abbott said. That's different from teens unlawfully getting access to guns to commit crimes. Those are people who deserve to be behind bars for the rest of their lives. Law enforcement officials have arrested a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old in connection with the shooting. A total of 14 victims were injured in the shooting. 1 of them is still in serious condition. Cantor was the only person to die. And it says Cantor's brother Nick provided the following statement to KVUE. Quote, Doug J. Cantor, originally from Allamont, New York, had recently been living in Michigan after completing 4 years in Michigan State in computer engineering. Soon after getting his bachelor's degree, he was employed with the Ford Motor Company. While continuing his education at the University of Michigan, he bought his first house and received his master's degree in business. He motivated everyone he came in contact with was a team player and advanced quickly in the IT department of Ford, working as a product manager. He also developed a website for his brother and his father's air conditioning and heating business. He was also looking forward to marrying his high school sweetheart of 10 years and starting a family. He was loved by all who knew him and had an infectious smile that would light up any room. He was loved by his family, friends, and everyone who met him. This senseless tragedy has put an end to all his dreams. And so that's just kind of a shout out for the family of Doug Cantor, because he was a good guy. It shouldn't have happened, but we had some idiot teenagers that went out there and lawlessly took his life. Among the bills that the governor signed is House Bill 1927, which we just discussed, among which will allow eligible Texans to carry a handgun without a license or without training. Austin Mayor Steve Adler released the following statement Friday morning regarding the bill, and quote, "This bill dangerously ignores the rising tide of gun violence we are seeing across the entire country." Adler, who of course is against this legislation, says, and I quote, "One thing remains clear: greater access to firearms does not mean greater public safety. By signing into bill House Bill 1927, the state's permitless carry bill, our city and the entire state will be less safe for the police officers and residents alike." According to the governor's office, the other bills signed on Thursday included the ones that we already discussed in the show today. Okay, so without reading really more about these different bills that the governor signed into place, really the biggest thing that he did was he allowed he allowed you to not have a license to carry, although having a license to carry still gives you many perks and benefits, including carrying other states that have reciprocity with Texas that don't have reciprocity with the legislation that he just passed. Let me see. I'm trying to turn my phone off here because I'm getting, I guess, a number of phone calls about our show today. Okay. So let me ask Station Manager Dick, how much time do we have left so I know what frequently asked questions I can go into? I have about 9 more minutes. Okay, so I'm gonna answer a few of the frequently asked questions that are still in place with this gun law. Okay, so how long is the waiting period to buy a handgun, shotgun, or rifle in Texas? And the answer to that is we're not affected by the new law at all. There is still no waiting period for purchasing a firearm in the state of Texas. And the next question is, I just moved to Texas. Do I have to register my firearm? No. There is no Texas state registration of firearms. Another question is, I have just bought a gun from someone in Texas. Do I need to transfer the gun to my name? No. There was no state registration of firearms. Thus, there is no requirement to transfer the firearm in your name. Okay. 4. What is required to purchase a firearm in the state of Texas? You will need a valid issued ID. Many places that sell firearms will not sell to out-of-state residents. This is due to the requirements to uphold, the federal requirements to uphold your resident state gun laws and inherent complexity associated with many of those states. And this is the 5th question. It is affected by this new law, but it's still in effect right now. So this is the proper answer for all laws through August 30th, 2021. Can I carry a firearm on my person? Yes. With proper licensing, a concealed handgun license, you may carry a pistol or a revolver on your person. Long guns, rifles, or shotguns do not have to be concealed, but must be carried in a manner not calculated to cause alarm and do not require a license. So that will apply. The license to carry law and just using common sense will continue to apply. If you are causing alarm with your gun, if you are committing a crime, if you're already prohibited in from carrying a gun because you're a felon. There is a protective order against you if you've committed family violence. For any of the reasons that you cannot currently have a license to carry, you still can't carry a gun now or effective September 1st. But after September 1st, you won't require a license to carry as long as you've got a holster. Now, of course, then you can also carry a gun that's not a real gun, like a water gun or something. But you run into a lot of problems if you point a gun that's not really a gun at somebody, particularly a police officer. If you don't want to get shot, that's like suicide by police, or it's just not prudent unless you're defending yourself, and that's all you have on you is something that resembles a gun or an unloaded gun, and you point at somebody because they could very well shoot you and have a defense if they were defending themselves. So be really careful about that. Can I strap a gun on my hip in Texas? Yes, you can. As of January 1st, 2016 through August 30th, 2021. Folks can carry a fire gun openly or concealed in a holster, and that's going to change a little bit with the new law effective September 21st, 2021. However, until then, you do have to be licensed. By Texas law, the gun must be carried using a shoulder or belt holster, not after September 1st. It just has to be a holster. Long arms do not require a license at all. Can I carry a firearm in my vehicle? Yes. With the passage of the Motor Protection Act, you may readily carry a handgun loaded within reach so long as you have a concealed firearm. It's as long as you conceal the firearm. And I believe after September 1st, it doesn't have to be concealed in your car anymore, but still have to follow the rules and law that's in place September 1st, 2021. Long guns, that would be rifles and shotguns, do not have to be concealed and may be loaded and within reach. So you truck drivers can have your gun rack on the back of your car with your rifle in it, and you're still and loaded, and you're still within the purview of the law. Armed machine guns, suppressors, short-barreled firearms, legal in the state of Texas. Yes, all national firearm rules apply. See, you want to go to the frequently asked questions in the DMV and in the state of Texas, and you're going to get a long list of the different laws that pertain to that. But just to ask that question again, because it's kind of a trick question. Are machine guns, suppressors, and short-barrel firearms legal in the state of Texas? Yes. Not all of them are, but some are. So you'll have to go look at that, the list. If you go to the stateoftexas.gov, you're going to get a list of those that are prohibited. Are assault weapons banned in Texas? No. Texas abides by federal law, which at this time has no restrictions on so-called assault weapons, such as semi-auto AR-15s. This says FAL-G3s and HK-91 rifles. And the last frequently asked question is there a limit on the number of rounds a magazine may hold? No. The only limit on magazines in Texas is the number of rounds you are physically able to cram into the thing and or carry and or can afford. So when they say thing, they mean gun. That's just insanity, that if you can get an assault weapon that has a magazine that holds an extraordinarily large number of amount of ammunition, if you can get it all in there, there's no laws prohibiting you from having that. But there are going to be some restrictions on assault weapons. I don't know what those are right now. There's a couple of other frequently asked questions that may answer that question. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see. I do want to reiterate that not everyone can carry a handgun. A person convicted of certain crimes cannot carry a firearm. Minors under 18 cannot openly carry without a parent present. And that will, effective September 1st, 2021, that age is goes up to 21 years. Generally, if you can lawfully possess a firearm, you can openly carry with a license, and that's going to also apply to not having to carry with a license effective September 1st, 2021. Please go read that law. Don't rely strictly on the station. Big disclosure here. Federal laws must also be considered when discussing the legality of a firearm ownership. So if you cross the state line or the country line, these laws will not, the laws that are going into effect September 1st will not apply only for those in Texas. I live out of the state. Can I carry in Texas? Yes, there is no residence restrictions to open carry as long as you possess a handgun license with Texas reciprocity. So that still applies, that it's not changed by the new law that's going into effect. A concealed handgun license in another state allows open carry in Texas. So, but now that's going to be, as far as our new law that's been passed September 1st, you will have a little bit more freedom as to that. You won't be restricted to just the Texas open carry law that's in effect right now or those in another state. Can my openly carried firearm be loaded? Yes, the law makes no distinction between a loaded and an unloaded firearm. For safety purposes, we recommend every firearm be treated as if it were loaded. Very good recommendation. I already have a concealed handgun license. Will I need to get another license to open carry? No. Your concealed handgun license will qualify you to openly carry a handgun with no further action. That's going to be modified and more loose effective September 1st. The concealed handgun license will be just a license to carry. And you will also still, after September 1st, give you some perks that you don't have otherwise that we discussed earlier in the show. I heard that there's additional training for open carry. Do I need to retake the class? No, the new training will be added to the concealed carry law that's still in effect right now. You can also go to the DPS, and it's a free class that you can take, although not required, after September 1st. That would be extremely helpful, I think, for all family members and anybody that owns a firearm or is thinking about owning a firearm to take. The DPS usually has some really, really good insight for your own protection and the protections of people around you. Is a holster that hangs from the belt that also attaches to the leg legal? Yes, provided it is attached to the belt. That will not be the same after September 1st. It does not have to be a shoulder or a belt holster. Can I open carry on private property? Yes, provided that the property does not display a 30.07 sign. The 30.07 sign will ban open carry, while the 30.06 sign will apply to concealed carry. We went over that earlier in the show. If there's a sign banning you from bringing a gun onto the premises, do not bring a gun onto the premises because you are facing a minimum of a Class C misdemeanor ticket with a $200 fine. And then the laws have become stronger about that, bringing a gun onto the premises with the new law effective September 1st and forward. A business wanting to completely ban firearms is required to post both a 30.07 and a 30.06. However, if the owner verbally requests a removal of the weapon and asks you to leave the property, you must respect his or her wishes. That applies now and will apply in the future. Failure to do so could result in a charge of criminal trespass and unlawful carry. Open Carry Texas respects private property rights and abides by business preferences. By choosing to spend our money at gun-friendly establishments, you can purchase no guns equals no money cards in an open carry store. Do hand to these anti-gun businesses to make them aware of the loss of liberty. If you choose to do that, I don't think it'll make any difference. You've already made your statement clear when you tried to come in to begin with. But I guess a business card with that on there will save you some money, and it's free. If you write or email them, they'll send you some. Do local law enforcement officers have know that open carry is legal? Yes, they are trained to know this, and they take CLEs, so to speak, or classes that update them on the law all the time. They should know ignorance of the law has the same strength with a law enforcement officer as it does to a citizen. So, yes, law enforcement officers were required to take open carry training in order to be licensed in the state. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that they will respect your rights, so make sure you know that what the law is in those rare instances. Am I required to show ID if I'm stopped for open carrying? There's a lot of debate about this, and I will tell you as an attorney, if a law enforcement officer stops you, you have to show them your ID, or you will be you'll be taken in. You just have to show an officer who you are. So I wouldn't play games with that. Just show them your ID. They're usually have the interest of the citizens in mind. If the sole reason for the stop is that you are open carrying, absent any other suspicion of a crime, no. Based on legislation's own words in passing the open carry law, it would be included. It was included in the legislation intent, which anyone can read for themselves in their own words, that the law enforcement cannot stop and demand an ID solely on an open carry threat. They can request it, but according to the legislature in the law, they cannot demand it without probable cause or reasonable suspicion. You are not required to show an ID or a license to law enforcement unless you are under arrest, which is actually not the case when you're pulled over a traffic stop. So I'm going to say that the person writing this article is incorrect. Just show them your ID, because they can find any reason for the stop. They can say for your own safety or other people's safety. Just don't do it. Just show your ID and don't be bad about that and have a bad attitude. So I'm getting the indication from Station Manager Dick that our hour is up for the day. This has been sort of I'm going over what the new gun control law will be effective September 1st, 2021 in the state of Texas. We're now a sanctuary state for the Second Amendment. We had some frequently asked questions. You can go to our YouTube, irlonestar.com, if you want to review this show that we had today, or you can go to the DPS. DPS.gov will give you the same information that I just gave you, probably a little bit more clear too, if you were a little bit confused about some of the things that we talked about. I am Tony Collins, and remember, the most important thing that you can always do in this lifetime is to serve God by serving others, as we've tried to do for you today. Thank you, and I will see you next week.